baptism, I was brought up in the Lutheran Church. Born in 1960, I was raised in Bedford, Pennsylvania. From the time I was born till I was 6, and my father got transferred, and we moved to Butler, Pennsylvania. From that point, I started first grade till 10th grade, and in that time period, we went to church every week. It was not an option. It was something that was mandatory in my house, that you were expected to go. And sure, as kids, we always kind of fought, and I didn't really want to go, but it was the deal. You went. You didn't have an option. And through that, I got through confirmation. In those earlier years, faith didn't really mean a whole lot to me. I'd go to church, but I didn't really know what was going on. I just went. But as I was going, I was being taught the stories of the Bible. I was being taught faith, even though I didn't know it. And as a child, you really don't think too much about it. I think as an adult, now that you've got some life experience, you end up having some faith that you can discuss in depth. As a child, I don't think you do. Now with the youth group, when I would work at the youth group, it was interesting to hear their faith stories, or not their faith stories, but where they were at as teenagers in who is God to you? Why do you come to church? What does this mean to you? And their answers were very different. Some were like, well, I had to be here, my mom made me. Some were like, I'm really interested in my faith journey. And I want to know about God. I want to know about this stuff. And I thought, God, I wish I had that when I was your age. You know, I went because I had to. I didn't want to know anything. When I became a teenager, my defiant years, it got pretty intense with, did I want to go to church? No, I didn't. But I was still living under my parents' roof, and it was their rules. I didn't have a choice. But I think with confirmation, it's a tough, when you're 13 or 14 years old, and you're forced to go to these classes. Some take it and some don't. But even though I did not want to be there, I was still learning. I was still learning about all the creeds and about the way our faith is in the Lutheran Church. Even though I didn't want to be there, I was still picking up on a lot of this stuff. Even though when you may think these kids aren't listening, they're picking stuff up. They're watching and they're learning. You may not think they're over there doodling around and everything, but their minds they absorb everything. And I think that's a learning experience in itself. So after I got through confirmation, in my teenage years, I was in the choir. I was in the kids' choir for a while. So I became a little active in the church, opposed to just going. And being active in the church gives a whole new avenue to your faith, opposed to just coming, listening, and going. It's very non-participatory. But once you get involved, you start to meet people, you learn, and you start to absorb new things. And through the choir and different things like that, I never was involved with the youth group, mainly because I hated skits. I did not like skits. I didn't like memorizing things, and I avoided the youth group like, nah, that's not for me, that's not for me. But I found myself as an adult being a leader of youth groups and enjoying the fellowship of the kids. So that was a part of my faith journey, was working with the kids. Moving on to get a little older, we moved to Carlisle, Pennsylvania in 1976. I was 16 years old. I had 2 years to get to know people in high school, which caused me to get into the fast track with meeting people. I wasn't really in sports. I wasn't a huge musician. I went with the people who liked everybody. I went with the kids that liked to smoke and drink and smoke pot. So I became some of that crowd. I had some great friends, and I think some of those Those years were great years, although it was a stupid thing to do. That helped me form who I am. I knew the difference between right and wrong. I knew I was doing wrong, but I was fitting in. I was a part of the gang. But what that did to my faith was push the faith thing over here. And now I've got something else to hang on to, which created a little diversion in my life. During the Defiant years, I got involved into a lot of stuff that I won't get into, but it was all based on selfishness. It was whenever I had my alternative world, God was not a part of it. Even though God was there all the time, I didn't know it. I didn't choose to believe it. But selfishness is a huge part of my story. Went to art school. That was a 3-year school. And I found some independence. I didn't have mommy and daddy saying, you have to do this, 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 and this. Financially, they were still supporting me, but I was on my own to make my own decisions, and I was loving it. And my faith at that point was there, but I don't think it was predominant. It was an underlying faith that motivated me to make people happy. People would always say, why do you always smile? Why are you always smiling? And my response was, maybe it'll rub off. And that was my mantra. I wanted to make people happy just by setting the stage when people meet me that I'm going to be friendly with them. That was a part of my faith. I didn't plan on that. That became who I was. And to this day, I try to do that. And those are things that I picked up along the way that I had no idea that God was working through me. But as I went through art school and I found this independence and we partied, we had a great time, my faith was kind of declining a little bit. And I actually used that lack of faith in later years talking to the youth and telling them, if you get involved in anything, don't let it get too far out of control. Because God is the one that is ultimately what you need to focus on. Not these toys, not these drugs, not these other things that the world says, yeah, it's okay to do. It's really cool. You can do this. Anytime I found myself involved in that, God was not a part of my life. And I was lost. Anytime in my journey that God wasn't there, I felt a huge empty void. And until I could make myself realize that and make myself turn around and go back and say, sorry, can we have a do-over? I would go back to church again, and I found that emptiness filled up just by participating and sharing my faith with the people at church. But yet as a kid, I didn't do that. I felt very uncomfortable about sharing my faith. It wasn't who I was. I wasn't comfortable with it. I wasn't grown up enough yet. But now, as an adult, I don't mind it. I share it at work. I share it with people. I share it with people here. And I don't mind it because I feel confident about what I believe and what I do. And doing and believing are like this. You can believe, but if you're not doing, what's the point to me? So anyway, let's see where I lost here. Okay, I moved back home, and the party world was not there anymore. And my parents said, you're a big boy now. You can make your own decisions. You can go to church, or you can stay home. And we're not going to tell you what to do. Well, I didn't go. I didn't go to church. Well, I didn't want to go to church. So I didn't for a couple years. Didn't want to set foot in church. Nothing to do with the world. So I, there again, was lost. Found myself at the bars at night and just wasted my life. And then I realized, where's my God? Not with me. Even though he was, I wasn't letting him in. And I was alone again. And then I went back to church again, and lo and behold, I met Eileen. And through Eileen, she helped me get really involved into the youth, and we got married, and we started to go to a different church in Carlisle, and we got involved in all kinds of stuff with the youth group, with parenting classes, and whatever the church had to offer. We were there. We wanted to be active. I was involved in the choir, youth group, anything that had to do with music, I was there. And I felt good. It was good. And the Lord said it was good. So, started having kids, got married, and had a great job. Everything was going just as planned. And then she decides to say, I want to go into the ministry. And I was kind of floored by this. I was like, well, why? What is making you do this? Well, she says, I don't know. I just feel like I would like to become a pastor. Well, being the selfish person that I am, I thought, well, I'm going to have to change. This is gonna upset the whole thing. You know, what? And I said, oh, no. I said, you can't do this. And then I got to thinking, I thought, well, what a big man I am saying you can't do this to a woman who's going to do it anyway. But I thought, no, that's really very selfish of me to say you can't do this because of my own selfish desires. So I said, okay, all right, we'll figure out a way. We're going to do this. So she goes to seminary, and everyone else, when it came time for internship, had their internship close by their spouse's work so that they could maintain an income. And Eileen said, I got this spot. It's the greatest spot. I'm going. I said, where is it? Oregon, on an Indian reservation. And I said, what? No, wait, I got a job. We got kids, everything. What do you... Again, it's the Holy Spirit working and just wrecks my whole world. Everything that I want to keep in a nice, clean little box, God is going to take that box and throw it away and make me worry and scramble. So, and this was one of my first turning points is my faith. I literally was sick to my stomach before this move, sold the house, quit my job, took everything we could possibly have in our little brown Voyager, and away we went to Oregon. And I was sick to my stomach until the day we pulled out of the driveway and I realized this could be an adventure. And I gave it up to God. I said, this is in your hands. I'm not in control anymore. And I literally felt the weight of the world off my shoulders. Just like that. I gave it up to God. And from that point on, everything just went right in line. Everything was going amazingly well. I had no job out there. I found I hunted and fished with her supervisor. It was a fantastic year. It was not all roses and peaches and roses, but it was a turning point in my faith because I had to give things up. So we get back from Oregon and we're back in Gettysburg. I found a job. Things were going well, and for that last year in Gettysburg, I had gotten laid off. Excuse me. And for about 3 months, I was drawing unemployment while she was waiting for her first call. And I thought, oh man, this is like, hello, need a little help down here. But I didn't want her to take this call just because we needed to fill a financial void. It had to be a fit. So we turned down 2 sites before she ended up in Penn Yan. Penn Yan was a fit. She felt it, I felt it, and we took it. But this was after 3 months of sitting and waiting. The people were coming in for the next year's class. We got bumped out of one place. We're living in another place. I felt like a refugee going from one house to another house saying, could we have a bed? Yeah. But God was working the whole time through this, even though I didn't see it, but he was working through us. So we get up to Penn Yan, and how am I doing for time? I'm not even watching my time.
It's been 15 minutes.
15 minutes. All right, I got to wrap this up quick. We went to Penn Yan, and we were there about 10 years. I had lost my identity somewhat when we got to Penn Yan because I was no longer the provider. And that took a toll on me, and I turned to drinking. I drank a lot, and I decided after things got pretty bad, I quit on my own for about 3 years, on my own. And things were going okay, but again, God was not there. Didn't want God in my life. I was in control. So that wasn't working real well. Becky got married, and I thought, I'm going to have a toast to my daughter. Took a little champagne, and before I knew it, I was back on the way, or I was back in the game again. For the next 5 years, I went downhill fast till I hit bottom, and I went to a rehab center. This is the part we probably will exit out of the tape, and that's you